about that first, okay? I want to discuss the ideas first. Why do we need it in the first place? And by the way, that's a very good question. Right. Okay, first of all, NumPy stands for numerical Python.
Numerical Python.
Yep. Who's this? Let me guess. Was it Shubham?
Aradhana.
I'm
Sorry,
sorry?
I've been Aradhana. Aradhana.
Aradhana. Okay, yeah. So it stands for numerical Python.
Python library.
Yeah, it is a Python library. All right. So I will need your engagement. Okay. So first of all, you might be aware that you know, okay, first of all, Python, for those people who are absolutely new to this thing, new to programming and everything, you may know or may not know that Python is a dynamic language, dynamic type language. Okay, unlike a C, C++, or Java. Okay, let's talk about object-oriented language. Let's say so. Unlike like C++ and Java, it is dynamic. Okay, so what dynamic means is that during runtime, it will do a lot of decision making. Let's say it that way. Okay, uh, what you can, and also it is interpreted language. It's just that so if I were to give you an example, if you talk about, let's say, Python, so it means it is a dynamically typed language. Okay, and it is interpreted. So, and however, let's say C++ or Java, sorry, if I were to talk about C++ or Java, it is obviously static, and it is compiled language, compiled or compile plus interpreted. Either way, like Java is both, right? So first difference is that what is the difference between dynamic and static language? So what I'm trying to say is that during execution time, sorry, when you type the code in your code editor, okay, during code editor only, if it is a static language, it will decide, you will have to tell the compiler, or you will have to tell the machine that if we are talking about, let's say, if you say something like, let's say something like, if you say int, like if you want to create an object for, okay, let me say it this way. Let's say you want to create an object over here, okay, and you want to say x, and this can, you want to make it of type integer. That would mean that x can store integer type. In static language, the way it will do is that you will have to say int x, you will have to first declare it, and then you will have to define it. So you will say x is equal to, let's say, 10, something like this thing. Okay, however, in case of Python, you simply have to say x is equal to 10. That's it. You don't have to do this declaration part. This declaration part is not required in Python, and there are advantages and disadvantages to this thing. So first thing is that if you're declaring something, this would mean in case of, let's say, um, dynamically typed language, if you try to do something like, let's say, x is equal to, let's say, 10.1, here it is not an integer anymore, it's a decimal or it's a float, right? It will, even before executing, it will tell that, hey, what are you trying to do? It's wrong, you can't do that. Why? Because x has been reserved for integer and integer only. That's it. That is why before execution, so I would say that before execution, it checks, the 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 data types and everything, if it is matching or not. Since the data type is not matching, like x is reserved for integer, and you are trying to feed some value other than integer, it will immediately give an error. It won't even compile, it will refuse to compile. Okay, however, the way Python would work, it's quite the opposite. It would say that if you try to say x is equal to, okay, let me change the color. If you try to say that x is equal to, let's say, 10.1, it will allow that. Okay, why? Because in Python, during before execution, okay, nothing is checked. I mean, syntax types are checked, but that is done by IT, it's not by Python. So during execution, it will first say that, okay, x has been reserved for 10. Okay, and this is the excuse me, let me change the color. So it will say during execution that, what, x has been reserved for 10 over here, and it is of the data type integer. Okay, it will point towards this thing. Now, people who don't know what pointers are, ignore it. Okay, so just say that x is a variable. It will point towards an object over here. But then, as soon as you say that x is equal to 10.1, another object will be created. 10.1. It was the type of float, perhaps, and x will sever the ties with this object, and it will feed it over here. Okay. Now x is referring to a new object over here. Okay, so the latest value of x will be 10.1, and this is allowed. But unlike in static languages, if something is reserved for x, it is reserved for x. You can't particularly change it. So this dynamic action of this dynamic changing action, this flexibility comes with dynamic languages. So this is the difference with dynamic and static languages. Any questions so far? Okay, I guess not. Now, what's the difference between interpreted and compiled? So imagine that you have a girlfriend, and compiled language would mean that your girlfriend would eat whatever is in front of her, and so she will eat whatever is, excuse me, she'll eat whatever is in front of her, and if everything is good, then no problem. However, if there is some problem in her meal, she won't notice at the time. She will eat everything, and then she will have to carry the burden of whatever, if something was off in her meal, she'll have to carry the burden there. Okay, that's a thing. Then then she will. So basically, she's eating everything, and she's then digesting it. However, interpreted would mean, imagine that you have a lunatic girlfriend. She eats one bite. Okay, she will digest it somehow, and if everything is hunky dory, only then she'll proceed to eat the next bite. If let's say after second bite, the third bite is off, she will eat it. If it is off, if she will immediately stop eating. Unlike the other man's girlfriend who's eating everything at once and she didn't notice, and during the digestion part, she noticed that something is off, and then she's sitting on toilet. So what this means is that if you have, let's say, 100 lines of code, okay, so basically over here, in case of, let's say, dynamic language over here, so this is dynamic, sorry, this is static, sorry, this is not static, this is compiled. Okay, here we will have interpreted. So if there are, let's say, you have a code over here, and you have, let's say, 100 lines of code, so 1 2 all the way till 100, it will first, this is the line of code that you, let's say, you've written Python. You will first compile it, and let's say you have an error at the you have an error at the same. Okay, first of all, same over here as well. 1 2 3 4 all the way till 10, all the way till 100. So 1 2 3 all the way to 100. And let's say that there's an error at the line 97. Okay, excuse me. Right, so what happens in compile language is that it will first take everything, all lines of code over here. Okay, and then it will compile it. Let's say you're eating everything together, and when it tries to execute, if there is even one single, even if there is one single error, it will not execute the program itself. It won't execute anywhere. Imagine that your girlfriend who ate everything all at once, even if there is one thing that was off, her entire stomach will get upset, and her entire, she'll try to make a deal with God. Okay, simple as that. But in terms, so everything, so it won't even run, won't run at all. Okay, this program will not run. However, in interpreted languages, remember, it's like a girlfriend which who's eating one line, so she will check the first line. If there is no error, she will move on to the next one. So if no error, she will move on to the next one. No error, she'll move on to the next one. So till 96, she will run and execute till all the lines till 96. However, in the line 97, when she encounters and there is an error, she will stop executing. But till 96, she would have executed. So if there is an output that has to be shown, it will be shown by it will be executed by till the line 96. So I could say will run till 96th line of code. Is it clear? Is it clear the